Hello and welcome back to the Spiritual Successful Podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Zwagil. I'm going to talk to you guys actually today about paradigms. This is so important. Paradigms literally control everything in our life. I have personally changed, I know, my life, my results, because I had a willingness to change my paradigms, right? Like that is literally the basis of everything. It is a multitude of habits. So we talked about how we exist on 3 different planes of existence. We talked about that already. We talked about we have a spirit. We are spirit, right? We live in the physical, but we also have an intellectual as well. So that's important because we have to know really who we are. I think that's the foundation. And once you know who you are, then it's time to really start looking at your habits. And your habits is how we program our paradigm. It's how you move into routine on a daily basis. So a paradigm, again, is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. How you move into your routine every single day. What you do when you wake up. What do you do first? You grab your phone first. You check the news first. What do you do in the morning when you move into that routine? That routine is literally what shapes our life. And the crazy thing is almost all of our behavior is habitual. And so if you really want to take control of your life and take control of your results in your life, then you also have to be willing to address some of these habits and really to take a good hard look at them. I think that's the most important thing, is really being able to look yourself in the eye and say, or in the mirror and say, I'm not happy with my results and I want my results to be this. So who do I have to become in order to get these results? So to change your paradigm, you have to take your wants, your goals from the conscious mind and impress it upon the subconscious mind. And our conscious mind is where our thinking mind is at. This is where we store up all the books when we go to college or whatever. This is where we get super smart. This is where habits start. This is where learning a new habit begins. And then once it's impressed into the subconscious, then it activates a certain frequency and emotion within us, good or bad. It doesn't matter. It works the same way. And that's really what takes action in our life. That's what takes action in our life. And so your conscious mind is hooked up to all of the senses that we have. We can see, hear, smell, touch, taste, all of those things. And it hooks us up to our environment, our experiences all around us. And that's important because you're going to have ideas of becoming a millionaire, ideas of becoming famous, or ideas of X, Y, Z. You get to fill in the blanks there. But at the deeper level, on the subconscious level, if we don't believe that, or if we fear that, or if we have faith in that, this can create conflict. So the 2 minds really is one mind, but 2 parts of the mind must be in harmony. So we talked about that, the 2 parts of the mind, and that's very, very important to understanding how your paradigms can change. Because again, to change your paradigm, you have to take your wants and your goals from the conscious level of your mind and impress it onto the subconscious. And so when we talk about how to impress something, the easiest way to understand that is to honestly just add emotions to it. Add emotions to it. Okay? And so this is going to cause you to take different actions that support your new beliefs, which lead to a new paradigm and ultimately a new result, right? So here's one thing that we get stuck in. It's what we call bridging the knowing-doing gap. Now, we learned this from the Procter & Gallagher Institute. I learned it from being a consultant. And I thought this was really amazing because, you know, when Bob Proctor goes on stage, he says, I'm going to teach you something you already know how to do, which, you know, you'd think like, wow, why did we pay so much money to come to this event or this seminar for you to tell me something I already know to do? Well, it's true. We already know things, but we're not doing them. Why are we not doing them? Well, because our actions, again, is what leads us to do things. And then our actions are stored up in our subconscious, which is dependent on our feelings and our emotions. And so one thing I read in the Bible a while ago, which made me remind myself of this, and it says, I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. Now, Bob Proctor used to talk about how when he was in the Navy, he was always in trouble. He was always just... Yeah, he was always in trouble. And he said, it doesn't really work in the Navy when you have opinions of your own and to tell your superiors your opinions of things. And if something doesn't make sense, why would I do it? He's thinking a little too logically, right? And they would say, why do you keep doing that to him? Why do you keep doing that? And he says, well, I don't know why I keep doing it. I know better, but I do it anyways. And so it's because of his programming that was getting him those results. And then similarly, if you've ever seen anybody go on a diet, before and not stick to it, why do we not stick to the habits we want to have in our life? Why does this happen? Because on the conscious level, you want to do it. You have it all mapped out. You printed the recipes. You bought the groceries. You cleaned out your pantry. You got new workout clothes. You did all the things. You got the gym membership. Everything's ready. You want to do it. But then subconsciously, you feel like, why bother? If I'm not going to create actual lasting change, why bother? Why bother, right? Why should I do this if I'm not going to get results? Because I don't believe it. So we do the things that we believe. And did you know you can change your beliefs? You can change your beliefs about yourself. You can change your beliefs about your religion. You can change your beliefs about your politics and people you vote for. You can change your beliefs about anything you want. Now, that was mind-blowing for me because I didn't know early on in my life I could change my beliefs. And one of the hardest beliefs I had to overcome was my belief in myself. Because I took an inventory of other people's opinions. The fear of criticism is one of the biggest things that held me back. And even though I've been sort of a self-proclaimed rebel my whole life, but truthfully, I doubted myself. And so I lived in a state of, I guess, indecision. Should I do it? Should I not do it? And Bob Proctor talks about, we have all these people running around saying, should I do it? Should I not do it? Well, we're all worried about what everybody else is thinking and doing. But truthfully, if we just gave ourselves the ability to believe in ourselves, we would accomplish so much more than we even think is possible. And the truth is, we have more talent and ability locked up within us than we ever use in our lifetime, right? We only use 5% of our mind's computing power. Imagine what is going to happen when we start using 100%. And so I want to say this, Romans 7:15-20, right? Says, and if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. And it is I no longer myself who do it, but the sin living in me. Or faulty subconscious programming. I don't want to take another drink of alcohol, but yet I do it anyways. It overpowers me. I do not want to do drugs, but they overpower me. I do not want to be mean to my children, but I do it anyway. I do not want to disrespect my wife or my husband or cause pain to my loved ones, but I do it anyways. Why? Why do we do these things? Why do we do the things we don't want to do? We don't want to do that. I don't think anybody wants to be that way. I don't think anybody wants to be faultily programmed. I don't think that's the goal. But what I do think is we have to be honest with ourselves. And that is basically saying, look, if I'm not going to do it until I program myself to do it. That's the truth. You would have to literally override all the code that's giving you bad results in your life. And you have to be intentional about that and add emotions to those intentions. So here's the thing. We already have all the knowledge and the power to accomplish most anything we want. However, we have not developed a clear understanding of how paradigms are formed or how they control our habitual behavior. Therefore, we frequently do not do what we already know how to do. We have superior knowledge, but we're getting inferior results, and this causes confusion and frustration. All right, so how do we change the paradigm? Well, first we got to understand our mind again, right? So our mind has higher mental faculties. We have perception, memory, will, intuition, imagination, and reason. And at the subconscious mind level, this is where our habits and our paradigms live. This is where our vibration and our feelings live as well. And so the goal is really to bring these into harmony so we can use our perception to look for good that can influence how we feel towards good. Because Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. It doesn't matter. Everything is just what it is. We assign meaning to it. And so when bad things happen in your life, you could just decide they're not bad things. The truth is it's only true if you accept it to be truth for you. We have our imagination. This is what gives us the ability to think bigger, to do bigger, to create more things in our life that we may not have any understanding of how to do yet. It lives in imagination. We have intuition. This is our sixth sense. This is the nudge that we get when we put our intentions out there and the doors around us begin to open. It's our job to tap into the intuition so we can walk through it, right? And then we have the willpower, we call it, right? The will is the will to do something. It's when you make yourself do something. Now you can train yourself and exercise the will within. It's not something you're just born with. We aren't just born with amazing willpower. It's something you exercise on a daily basis. Okay. And then our reason. This is where literally we decide whether we're going to do something or not, right? Reason. Now, sometimes reason holds us back. Sometimes we look at things a little too logically. And Bob Proctor used to say, if you want to get better results, sometimes you're going to have to be illogical. You're going to have to do what other people aren't doing. He also said, it's no surprise that 96% of all the money that's being earned is going to the top 3% of people in the world. Well, they probably aren't doing things the way everybody else is doing them. So how do you change this? How do you change this? This is something that happens over time. Now, you can make the decision to change immediately. Decisions don't take any time at all. Tony Robbins talks about this all the time. He says it takes like that to make a decision. It's usually leading up and wrestling with the decision before we make the decision. That's what causes us all the stress, right? But to make a decision, you can just make a decision. And successful people make decisions very effectively and quickly. And they're often never changed their minds after that. Henry Ford was committed to the Model T car, which was known as the ugliest car in the world. And despite his engineers telling him, can we please scrap this car? He said, no, we're not going to do it. I made my mind up. We're going to develop a 8-cylinder engine and we're not going to abandon this until it happens. And despite, the advice and everything he was getting around him, he had made up his mind and refused to change it until he got to the point in which he felt was completion. So how do we change our paradigm? Let's jump into that. Well, first, you have to use your imagination to determine what it is you really want. Now, I think most people do know what they want. I do also think that most people are too scared of admitting it to themselves. I think people know what they really want, but they're too scared to even say it out loud because they're afraid that it's going to sound too big or unrealistic or out of reach. Okay? And so how to change even just that, to allow yourself to tap into your imagination. I want you to do this, right? Write a new story about yourself in full detail. Now, we talked about this before. I'm sure you've heard this before. And I've done this with my own child, Evan, my oldest son. I've done this exercise with, and it has created a very pivotal, monumental shift in his life from doing this exercise. And that is, I told him, what is it you actually want? Write that down. Write the version of yourself that you want to be. I know for myself, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to have more money than I knew what to do with. And I also wanted to never be limited based on the things that I wanted in life. If I wanted first-class flight, I want to be on a first-class flight. If I want to have 2 cars, I want to be able to buy 2 cars. If I want to have one car, whatever. Like the things that I want in life, I didn't want to be held back by a limitation of money, which is energy, because everything is, right? And so I had to accept the version of myself that I want to become. I wanted to be a gym person. I wanted to have muscles in my arms, guys. Like, I had to change my habits. I had to change my paradigm. I had to change my self-identity. I had to start telling myself a new story about myself. I had to also identify my old story, or the story that I kept telling myself about myself, and I had to burn it. And so if you guys have heard this before, don't set your heart on it, right? Don't get your hopes up. Why do we tell each other this? This is the worst advice I've ever heard in my life. Like, why do we tell people who are excited about something? Yeah, I'm going to go to this college and I'm going to try and get this job and then I'm going to have this and that in my life. And what happens? Parents say, oh, well, don't get your hopes up. You might not be able to get there. And now, of course, they're coming from a good meaning and it's just to protect their child. But why would we want to place limitations on that child? We should always enable them to think bigger, to tap into the imagination and allow them to set their heart on it. I need you guys to set your heart on it. That means stepping into the spirit of it. Stepping into the spirit of it. That means going all in from an energetic level with the goal and the version of yourself that you want to become. And it has to be non-negotiable, right? It has to be a non-negotiable in your life. It has to be a mandatory expectation of yourself. This is where you give yourself a command and follow it. It's basically staying committed to the version of you that you want to become and deleting everything else that's not it, right? Deleting everything else that's not it. And so you're going to use your will to focus on it exclusively. When you take a magnifying glass and you put it in the sun and you stare at an ant or something, maybe a blade of grass, the sun goes straight through the magnifying glass. And if you could focus all that energy coming from the sun into a white hot beat, and what happens, it could create fire because of how much energy is being passed through this magnifying glass. The energy is being magnified. In the same way, you're going to use your willpower to focus on it exclusively. You're going to put all your energy behind it. Okay? So here's some tools that I use to keep my mind straight, my spirit on point to do the things I know I need to do. These are some tools I use to help change my paradigm. This was so uncomfortable in the beginning. Now it's just a normal everyday expectation for me. Now I'm just like, okay, this is who I'm going to be. This is what I'm doing. And that's that. I don't wrestle with it anymore. I just make decisions and then I go do it and I get to work. But I didn't start there. Okay. It was like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. I remember feeling so doubtful of the affirmations I was saying out loud, as if I was lying to myself. And it felt like that because honestly, I identified more with lies than I did with truth. I didn't realize that it's all perspective. It's all perspective. I knew I had people that had opinions of me, and I believed more in their opinions of me than I believed in opinions of myself. I realized I had to level up things in my life if I wanted to feel good about who I was becoming and trust that I could become her. That was a big one for me. I realized over time, as I went through my own growth journey, that I was tired of being sorry. I was tired of saying sorry to people. I was tired of hurting people. I was tired of the bad results that I was getting. And so I had to show up every single day as my future self, even as uncomfortable as it was. And the more I showed up living in my truth, the more belief I gained of myself because I had evidence. I had proof. I had proof of the person that I was becoming, and I had more evidence going towards my future than that of the evidence of my past. And so here's some of the tools I use. I use the Think Up app. Okay, and this is basically, you can record your own affirmations. Some of my most basic foundational affirmations I had were just, I am worthy to be loved. I had abandonment in my family. I had my whole family fall out on me for 7 years of my life. And I didn't show up until I became super successful. Weird how that happens. It's true though. Sometimes that happens. And I had to make myself believe I was worthy of love, even though I had no evidence of that in my life. Okay, I remember feeling like, okay, I'm going to show up and love myself then. If they won't, then I'll love me. Right? I had to say these things to myself, even though it felt like I was lying to myself. Because over time, it became more believable. I did this every single day for months on end. And eventually, as the months went by, I was like, yeah, I am worthy. I am loved. I am going to kick ass at all these things for sure. Like, I believe that now. It takes time to reprogram your brain, right? Or your mind. It takes time to shift the cells within our body into a new paradigm. And so the other thing I can't stress enough is you need to read every single day. Like, you have to study. And I don't mean just like you read a couple lines and say, oh, I did it. Like, I'm not talking bare minimum effort here. I'm saying you're reading something, you're writing notes, you're learning how to become a better version of yourself. Because guess what? Like, for me, I didn't have parents I felt like were mentors in my life. I couldn't just call them, hey, Dad, what do you think I should do about this and that? And honestly, I don't know that I wanted their advice anyway. I didn't really like the results they were getting. And so books became my mentors, right? Personal development became my saving grace. And it literally what made all the difference in my life. I didn't attract mentors until I was already halfway down that road. I didn't meet Bob Proctor until I had already made my first $1 million, right? And I met him and he was like, never stop studying. He's like, I don't care how much money you make, you have never arrived. And I was like, wow, okay. I mean, there is no end goal. There is no end goal. You just keep setting another one. But I made the commitment to study every single day, regardless of how on top of the world I thought I was. All right. And so the next thing is to spend 15 to 20 minutes every single day in visualization. Now, the most powerful time to do this is when you're first waking up in the morning and when you're first and then when you're going to sleep at night, right before going to sleep. Visualize the future that you want. Are you standing on stage with millions of people? That's my vision. I see that clearly as day. And it's the first thing that I imagine when I wake up in the morning and before I go to sleep. I see stadiums packed. That's what I see in my future. Not because I need that in my life, but because I know if I pack out a stadium of millions of people, guess what? I'm going to create a ripple effect in each and every one of them. And can you imagine the magnitude of positivity that leads out from there, from that event? Life-changing events. That's my visualization. It's what I see for myself. What do you see for yourself? Get clear on that. You have to build a picture in your mind. Your mind thinks in pictures. It doesn't think in words, doesn't think in anything else. Your mind only operates in pictures. So you have to create a clear picture and you have to spend time in a relaxed state visualizing it. Okay. And the next thing is to listen to your emotional guidance system. Now I got this from Money and the Law of Attraction with Esther and Jerry Hicks. And I learned this when I was doing door-to-door final expense insurance. I was literally going off cold leads, basically going to people's homes, knocking on the door and asking them if they wanted to buy death insurance. Not life insurance, literally. It's what is your expenses after you die, right? Like that is probably the most not fun job on planet Earth. But I was listening to Money and the Law of Attraction while I was doing those different jobs because every time I got rejected, I realized it was bringing my energy down. And if I was going to get sales, I had to reset and bring my energy back up again. And so your emotional guidance system or your EGS is what tells you if you're on the right track or not. It tells you what vibration you're on. And feeling is a word that we invented to tell us what vibration we are on, right? And so if you're feeling bad or doubtful or fearful or anxious or depressed or paranoid or whatever, indecisive and procrastinative, that's not a word, but it is now. If you're feeling negative emotions, well, then it's probably also true that you're off track. You're off track because you should be feeling good every day. You should be feeling on top of the world, fired up. And typically people feel that way when they're moving towards a goal, right? Ask me how excited kids are like the month of December going into Christmas. Every single day, their elf moves somewhere in the house. There's countdowns. There's advent calendars. Like it's a big freaking deal, right? For Christmas. And then when Christmas comes, they tear up the whole living room. They open their presents, whatever. And then what happens on December 26th? It's a regular day. The joy is gone. And now they're sad because they got to wait 364 more days till the next Christmas. They are the happiest moving towards their goal. And once they reach their goal, it's now time to set a new one, right? Okay. And so Earl Nightingale again said that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. It's if you are moving towards your goals at all times, you are a successful person. He didn't say when you reach your goals, now you're successful. No, it's an energy, you guys. It's success energy, and it's staying in alignment with that energy. So you have to pay attention to your emotions. Are they good? Are they bad? Are you short, snappy, evil at home? Are you happy and excited and you enjoy the present moment of being around those you love, right? Pay attention to your emotions. Your emotions are how the universe speaks to you and how you speak to it. It is literally what's being sent out into from Aladdin's lamp into the genius. The emotions you're setting out there is what you're going to receive back to you. Okay, and the next thing is once you've set your goal, you're going to read it every single day with emotions. With emotions. Not just I read it and it sounds fake news. No, you're reading it, you're visualizing it, and it's coming true, right? It is sure as day going to happen. All right, and then the next thing, listen to high vibe music. Like this one for me, if I'm in a bad mood, I could just play something I like. Start singing. Right? Start dancing, do something fun, get yourself, do something to pivot out of that energy. If you're going to have a pity party, it can only last 15 minutes. That's it. And then then you're done, right? And then you're going to get up off your butt and do something productive, do something exciting, do something that's worthwhile, that's going to shift your energy. This is not a nutrition class, but the more clean you eat, the higher vibe you will become. So just keep that in mind. If you're putting garbage and low vibrational foods in your body, it's going to be hard for you. You're creating resistance. You want to create flow. And then lastly, quit the negative and destructive habits. Now, it's hard to do a lot of habits at once. Bob Proctor used to instruct, just do a couple at a time. If you can just do a couple at a time, you're well on your way. And then you're going to need the telescope to look back at how far you've come a year from now. Okay. So Robert Russell said, habit is God's way of making good automatic in your life. Your subconscious is where all the automatic mechanisms really take place. The cybernetic mechanism within us is through our subconscious. It's how you know how to ride a bike. It's not how you drive to work every day without probably thinking about it. All the things that you're doing there are automatic. And so you can make good automatic in your life. You can wake up every single day, fired up, excited, full of energy, full of life, and proud of the person that you are and who you're becoming. If you can tap right into that subconscious, reprogram it for the good you desire. One thing I want to say is this: the universe will not give you the good you desire until you make space for it. Until you make space for it. Just like if you want to be whatever your goals are, right? Let's say your goal is to buy all new wardrobe, right? That could be a goal. Let's just say that, for example. You want to buy all new wardrobe. You want it to all be high-end, beautiful, whatever, luxurious. Maybe you want it to be all hippie clothes and hemp. I don't know. Whatever your goal is, let's say your goal is to get a whole brand new wardrobe so that you're more in alignment with your new identity, right? Well, in order to bring these clothes into your house and into your closet, what do you have to do first? You have to clean out your closet. You have to make room for the good that you desire. Bob Proctor used to say, nature abhors a vacuum. Well, and I used to be tripped out by that. I'm like, what the heck does that even mean? Like, why do you keep saying this? I don't understand it. And eventually I understood it. And it basically means you have to make space. But if there is space, something will get filled in its place by nature, and you can use what you fill into that space. If you're seeking love, true love in your life, but you're holding on to an old relationship, a dead relationship that's not bringing you anywhere near your future of yourself that you really, really want, well, maybe it's time to let that relationship go. I'm just saying. Now, I'm not trying to go inspire everybody to go get divorced. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But I know, at least in my own personal life, what I wanted was different than what I had. And I had to make some decisions. If you really want love in your life, you have to make space for it. You have to make space to cultivate it. It's not going to just arrive and be on top of everything else going on in your life. You have to create space. You got to create space for the good that you desire. Okay. So finally, I just want to wrap up with this. You're going to be distracted. You're going to be hit with all kinds of excuses. You're going to be hit with, okay, I'm going to become the next version of myself next Monday. Like you're going to talk yourself out of it probably 1,000,001 times. You're going to come up with excuses. But how bad do you want it? You don't have to change everything. You just have to change a few things. And commit to just a couple things at a time. If you want to master your mind, it's very simple, but it's also very difficult at the same time. Every man has the natural inherent power to think what he wants to think, but it requires far more effort to do so than it does to think the thoughts which are suggested by appearances. It means despite what's going on around you, your vision is so strong, you know exactly where you're going. I don't care if you're driving a 1985 Ford Fusion, and in your mind, you're thinking, no, I want the next Lamborghini, right? But in your mind, you hold the vision of where you're going. You're not bothered by what is, because what is only just a reflection of what was before. It was literally the result of your past thinking. And so if you're going to change your future, you have to change your thinking right now. To think according to appearances is easy. That's why everybody does it. Why I see it, it must be fact. No, I'm asking you to be a little bit delusional and think ahead to your future. It's not here yet, but you can decide if it happens or not based on how you're thinking right now. To think according to appearance is easy. To think truth of your vision regardless of appearances is laborious and requires more expenditure of more power than any other work man is called to perform. Wallace D. Waddle says that. So what I'm asking of you is not easy. It's simple. It's not easy. It takes decision. It takes commitment. It takes a perspective change. It takes a paradigm shift. It takes you deciding to become the next version of yourself and killing off the old version of yourself. That is literally the only way. If you want to become the good you desire, you must let go of something. What are you willing to give in order to get that next highest, best version of you? Thank you guys so much for hopping on, and I will see you guys here again next week in about 7 days. Bye, y'all.